So now we will hear about the BearingPoint RegOps Concept, and I'm now joined by Maciej, member of the management board of BearingPoint RegTech, and Daniel, who is team lead emergent technologies, to talk us through the concept. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Annette, and great welcome from our side. Last 12 months, at BearingPoint RegTech, we also tried to do a couple of innovative things. And this is exactly what RegOps is about. With RegOps, we are trying to look at innovation, agility, digitalization to solve the problems that today in the morning, the sessions and the keynotes were bringing up. And I marked the statements from both Joe Stiglitz and also Jean-Claude Juncker on the access to real-time data by regulators. But let's start with the status quo. The status quo is quite clear, not optimal. I think we are seeing that something is a bit rotten in the area of regulatory reporting. And there was a lot of comments already today about the lack of data insights for supervisors, high cost for supervised entities. And this brings actually the question, does banking regulation really work? And I think we are not challenging here the banking regulation as such. The capital buffers, which were also alluded to in the previous sessions, are a clear measure that are making the financial system more robust. But clearly the way how we operationalized regulation in the last decade leaves room for improvement. And that was quite a paradox situation where during the COVID crisis, some regulators started to relax the requirements for the financial services industry to provide them with data. I would not like to go too far that they were getting a bit into the blind flight. But the truth is that in the situation of crisis, you rather would ask for more precise data, what is happening, rather than relax the requirements. And this, of course, poses a question, is there a way to better operationalize regulation to avoid cost for the industry and better connect the regulators to the banks, insurers, to the industries that they are supervising? And this is exactly what we've been trying to have a look at the last 12 months at. Now, there's two nice quotes, one coming from Andy Haldane, and Joe Stiglitz was also referring to Andy Haldane today in the morning. Andy Haldane, who some of you may know, coined the term RegTech, was bringing the idea of regulators sitting in a Star Trek chair and over a bank of monitors monitoring the industry. And just in summer this year, Benoit Curé, who is now the head of the BIS Innovation Hub, brought a similar vision with a bit more technology terms about the APIs and the better data granularity. Both Andy Haldane and Benoit Curé are making this a bit of the long-term vision. What we try to do at BearingPoint RegTech, we try to ask ourselves, can we make this vision reality? Not necessarily 5 years from now, but much faster. Now, this is how RegOps was born. RegOps, we want to make the dreams and visions of Andy, of Benoit, come true. It's a paradigm change, how regulation is being developed, deployed, and how the data is being exchanged via push, but also pull approaches. We are taking the standardized and industrialized state-of-the-art tech infrastructure, and we are claiming that with RegOps, regulator can get data per pull approach without burden for the industry within a single sprint, which is a week or two time, compared with the regulatory data flowing to regulators after a change today, after months or even years. It's a very, very significant advantage compared to the world today. I'll pass now to Daniel to explain a bit more details how actually RegOps is being constructed.
Thank you, Maciej. I would like to propose to you now the 3 building blocks of RegOps. So I think this is the 3 main components we need to come to this vision, to make this vision come true. And one of this is the granular standardized data dictionary and data model and the processing logic. So first of all, we need to really capture the data of banks, of financial institutions in a granular way. And with granular, we mean contract granular, counterparty granular, or cash flow granular. The second thing we have to do, we have to encode it in a common data dictionary, in a common data model, so that we find a universal language for regulatory data. And we have to build a processing logic which builds on top of this data model, this data dictionary, to really do a standardized processing with the same rules for everyone. The second part that we need is a transportation of these granular data models and a transfer of them in an uninterrupted way. And for that, we need an end-to-end integration via API to really make these data sets flow from the financial institutions to the regulator. We need to build the system in a way that it's able to be flexible enough to cover different IT landscapes, maybe different legal setups, different governance setups in different countries, so we can cater to the needs in the jurisdiction there. And the third part, what we need is really a common repository for regulatory code and the data model that everybody can access, the market can access, but on the other hand, can be fed with information, with new code by the regulator. And the third part that we need is, if we have this standardized data model, the standardized granular data, and we can transport it, we need something with which to receive this data. And this is the big data-enabled tech backbone, which the regulator deploys, which is then basically collecting, saving, and making this data available for analysis. For that, we have business intelligence tools with which we can visualize the data, with which we can do data analytics. And also, I think in the next step, which is a big topic, is modern technologies we can employ here, like maybe machine learning, predictive analytics, and so on. So how would this concept look like if we have a look at this at a sketch here when we sketch it out? On the left side, you see here the financial institutions with the data sources. So that could be their core banking systems, their trading systems, their data warehouses. The first step, what we have to do, we have to map them onto a common data model, a common data standard. We propose here this could be our RegTech IDD, Input Data Dictionary. And with this, we would establish databases with regulatory data at each institution, which is completely standardized, which is completely put in the same language, which both sides can understand, the regulator and the financial institution. The second part, what we need to transfer the data, is an API with which we can first transfer the data, with which we can receive data requests from the regulator, send it to the institutions, with which we can deliver data from the institution side to the regulators, with which we can feedback certain information, which is calculated by the authorities, and we would have the ability also to use this for maybe steering governance and legal issues by steering the access rights here, by steering the rights with which this API can be accessed from both sides. And the third part, which we need obviously, is then this big data-enabled tech platform, where we have Abacus Regulator v3 here in this model, where we have certain components that the regulator needs. One of them is a design tool with which you can design the data model, the data request that you want, so the scope of the data, and the data processing, which you have here. So transformation allocation, for example. With this, you can constitute regulatory logic in functional units. We think to start out with, you would probably use reporting like ad hoc reporting or stress testing, which may be non-as cyclical, not as standardized as the other reports, to start to learn how this granular data works. So financial institutions and the regulator can learn how it works. And if both sides say it's successful, it works for everybody involved, then you could go from these more non-standardized reporting frameworks to the standardized ones and slowly start to migrate it. So you wouldn't do it in a big bang, but rather with a transformation scenario. The third part which we have here is a data lake, which is then able to collect this data, receive the data from the institutions, understands the data model in order to make it available for processing. And the fourth part, especially make it available for analytics, so that you can really visualize the data, build your templates out of this granular data in a dynamic way, in a completely flexible way, that you can do your data analytics on top of it, and that you can then also employ maybe modern technology like AI or machine learning onto these data sets. And how would a reporting cycle look like here? So let's say the regulator then basically designs this new set of regulation. He would then incorporate it in a functional unit. He would send this functional unit, which contains then the data request scope and the processing logic in the end, over to the financial institutions. They could download it. They could then run this on their databases, return a data package, send it over to the regulator. The regulator could then, depending on how you set up the scenario, process all the data and come to all the regulatory results. It's also thinkable in a flexible way that you would basically let some of the calculation being done on the financial institution side. So there's a certain degree of flexibility where this processing happens, and in the end, then you pass it on for the analytics function, where the regulator can then visualize the data and also give feedback to the banks, maybe also pass over analytics results for them. So both sides understand what's being talked about, and both sides there's an equilibrium of information in this regard. Maybe to sum up what this model brings, and I think what we have seen here. So I think this model should be, first of all, very good for the regulators, because you get high quality data, granular data, you get it in a very standardized way, so it is highly comparable between institutions, what it might not be today. The second part why it's good is I think it's highly efficient for the financial institutions, because everything is standardized. All the logic which you have to roll out today is basically on a standardized way everybody can employ, where you need less change costs, less change efforts to implement such a thing, and also that it's operationally highly resilient, I guess, because it's all done in an automated way. It can really use automated functions to calculate all this, so also in times of stress this should be highly operationable. And the third part what I like about this is that it's very flexible, so depending on how you configure the API, how you configure the data processing and certain other parts, you can really make this work for every jurisdiction, all the requirements there. And what I also think is good here, that it's really open for new technology. So the first part is, I already said, AI, machine learning. This is a perfect platform for that. We have seen that maybe blockchain solutions, DLT solutions, which were also a big topic with the central banking community this year, could be easily used because it's agnostic from where the data comes. And I think the last part, which we have seen also, is cloud computing coming up. So we have built this in a POC for the G20 tech sprint this year, where we were shortlisted. And we really had this on the cloud native platform. We implemented the POC and see that this really works. And that's the state we're currently in. And I would hand over to Maciej.
Thanks, Daniel. Why we are so excited about that? Because, oh boy, this is not only a concept, but we put it actually on technology platform. We proved that it's working. We got the shortlisting of the G20 BIS tech sprint, and we are really, really privileged to have the opportunity to work with very few selected regulators, jurisdictions globally, to put this concept to work, to see how this can work in the real circumstances. So really, really exciting innovation. We believe that this will be the future of how regulators connect to the industry, how they can get more visibility and more transparency into the financial markets. Now, it's only sneak preview. I would like to encourage you, if you are really interested in the RegOps concepts and the way how we implemented it, to join the panel discussion tomorrow in the regulators track between Juliana Müller from Deutsche Börse Clearstream and Martina Drvar from the Croatian National Bank, followed by presentation from Daniel on the details of how RegOps can become a reality and how can enable regulators to work way more efficiently with the financial services industry. And with that, I'll pass to Annette for the next panel discussion.
Thank you very much.